Hey, y'all. I want to start by saying I deeply and sincerely apologize for accosting your eyes with these three disgusting stooges that you see on your screen right now, filled with nonces and nonce apologists. But we do have to get caught up on a few things. First, Virginia Guffrey's book came out. I bought it. I will begin recapping it next week. However, I do want to talk a bit about it today. Did you guys buy the book? Have you started it? Let me know in the comment section below. We also have to talk about Prince Andrew, who announced that he would be renouncing his titles, but there is more to it. Now, when I reported that last week, it was in the moment. I reported it 30 minutes after the news was made public. And so I read the articles that detailed the information in real time. But since that time, more has come out, and I do want to go back and discuss it a little bit more in depth now that we have more information. And then we also have to talk about William's plans when he takes the throne. And we've been discussing and tracking for years how his alleged favorite tabloids and media publications that he allegedly likes to leak to have been publishing articles and a lot of content centering him as the current king, or counting down essentially his term as king. They have essentially treated Charles as an interim stand-in and not the actual king. And we started talking about this shortly before Queen Elizabeth passed away, and it has not stopped. As a matter of fact, it's picked up. And today is no different. A slew of articles have come out recently. I've been kind of skipping them throughout this year. I just did not have time for William and his BS. But a slew of articles have come out recently about what he plans to do in regards to titles within his family when he becomes king. Now, if you ask me, I personally feel like when he becomes king, he should have a lot more important things to do and think about and plan on doing than something as ridiculous as titles. But for me, or anyone, honestly, at this point, to expect William or his wife to do anything impactful, then that would be crazy on us, because have they shown us that they have any intent on being a good king and queen, or even a remotely decent king and queen? No. So my expectations are in the gutter. But regardless, a slew of articles have come out detailing some things that he plans on doing allegedly. And honestly, I don't care what William's got going on, but I have been asked about my opinion, so I will happily give it. We got a lot to get into, all that and more, so let's get started. Thank you so much for clicking on my video, and if you're returning, welcome back to my channel. Today, we will be talking about three main topics. First, we have to talk about the release of Nobody's Girl by Virginia Roberts Guffrey. Now, I did not realize I have been saying her name incorrectly. It's Guiffre. I'm so sorry. I genuinely did not realize that. So now that I have heard the audiobook and heard the right pronunciation, I will be referring to her as Virginia Roberts Guiffre from this point forward. But I do apologize for mispronouncing it at any other point. And of course, rest in peace to Virginia Guiffre. I'm still very, very, very sad and shaken up by her passing. And I haven't been able to really talk about it just because it was such a shock. And I want, and most of us, hopefully all of us, wanted nothing for her but peace from this point forward in her life. She definitely deserved that, and so we can only hope that she is resting peacefully. But her book has come out. I will begin recapping it next week. I am still processing. I've already started it, and I'm still processing so much of what I've heard just this morning, and I had to take a break. But she is absolutely detailing some experiences, and I am so happy she was able to get out her truth and the truth of others who she also speaks for within her book. But have you guys purchased the book? Let me know in the comment section below. Usually I like to recap content immediately, but this has taken me a bit. I thought I was going to start recapping it tomorrow, but when I started hearing some of the stories, which I did expect, but when I started hearing some of the detail and some of the stories, I did decide to give myself a week to process so that when I do recap, I'm not emotional. And y'all know I'm quick to cry, so I don't want to put y'all through that. I want y'all to be able to hear her stories in a condensed version, or my summary of her stories in a condensed version, and my opinion without, projecting my emotions on it, because it is a pretty tough conversation, or a pretty tough book to get through. But I want her truth to be out there, and I want to be able to talk about that as well, especially since it's interconnected with the content on my channel. So we will be discussing that. Unfortunately, we have to talk about Charles, William, and Andrew. I have avoided talking about that man for so long. I'd be forgetting his name. But we'll get into that. Also, there's a couple of articles that have come out that have been like saying things along the lines of, we're finally getting the full gist of royal privilege. And while that's great, I'm glad that some people are having that experience. That's a little surprising to me. And I have to say, I do have a bit of quote unquote privilege in this situation because I have been covering the royals for years now. As an American, that is not something that most of us really care about. So I shouldn't expect people to really understand royal privilege. But to me, their privilege has been quite obvious. And if at any point people had forgotten or didn't quite know, the whole situation with Princess Diana should have been their first clue. And then the whole situation with Harry and Meghan should have been their second and most glaring clue. And now the situation with Andrew and this whole Epstein situation should have been the nail in the coffin. I don't understand how people are still grappling with how much privilege they have and how not only unfair, but how extremely dangerous that level of privilege actually is. But whatever it takes, I'm glad that more people are starting to recognize, like, no institution and no member of said institution should be above the law, especially when people are being harmed. We're not talking about someone who routinely jaywalks and they just get off of that because the cops know who their mother or grandmother is. No, we're talking about someone who allegedly committed such grievous acts that they allegedly paid $12 million in a settlement. Most people, I'm not speaking for everybody, but most people don't pay out settlements for things they didn't do. But there are some people who have, just so that it didn't continue to grow legs, and they recognize the loss on this end would be far lower than the loss if this continues. But in most cases, people don't pay out settlements for things they didn't do, especially to the tune of allegedly 12 million pounds. And to me, that feels pretty obvious, but I don't want to say something and speak out of turn and not be able to back it up with facts. So he was never proven guilty. But in my opinion, as one lone person who only represents themselves, he looked guilty as hell. And I think he's guilty. And I think he should have had to pay a real price. I think justice should have been really served. I'm glad that he paid out a settlement to Virginia. I wish that she had been able to utilize that, process her experiences, and move forward to live a beautiful, flourishing, lovely life of peace that she deserved. But I wish that she had been able to see him truly experience justice, and not just him, every single person involved. But I'm not going to start us off on too low of a note. We will be getting into some of that. But if you haven't already and you feel so inclined, please don't forget to go ahead and like this video by hitting the thumbs up beneath the screen. Feel free to subscribe by hitting the subscribe button. It's free. And please don't forget to share so that more people can find us. I saw a couple of comments, people saying I would subscribe, but I don't have any money to pay, or I don't want to pay for it. And I'm not sure where that is coming from. If you're on YouTube, I feel like there's a pretty basic understanding that subscriptions are free. Now, there are paid subscriptions, and then there are paid memberships and all that stuff. There are paid memberships. I'm not asking you to join as a member unless you want to. But subscribing, just hitting the subscribe button, is free. So if you want to do that, you are not going to be paying anybody anything. But anyway, so we're going to get into today's video. I do also want to offer one super quick disclaimer. We will be talking a bit about Virginia Giuffre's book, not in depth, but we will have to reference it a couple of times, and we will have to reference Prince Andrew, who is named in that book, as well as his recent exploits and his recent announcement. So that is pretty heavy content, and content that I don't often touch on anymore, and that can be heavy. And so I want to just give you the opportunity now to say, if this is just not something I want to process on a random Tuesday, you got my blessing. Feel free to come back if you want to hear more about that, or check out any other video on my channel, or enjoy whatever you'd like on YouTube. And also, if my content is not for you, that is okay. I'm not going to take it personal. You don't have to stop to let me know. Feel free to go find what works for you and what wets your whistle. I wish you all the best. Just in case someone forgot, like, you don't always have to tell me that you don't like me or my content before you go. Just feel free to head out. I wish you the best. Close the door behind you. But anyway, we're going to get into today's videos. Thanks so much for watching, and let's get started.
A note from Virginia Roberts, Giuffre's collaborator. Writing a book with someone is always an intimate exercise. During every project I've worked on, at some point I must ask the author some extremely personal questions. Next, I bolster their memories, no matter how vivid, by working to corroborate them, reviewing all pre-existing documentation, and talking to others in their lives who may have witnessed or known about the events being described. In that sense, the process I followed while working with Virginia to get her story right was nothing new for me. Two things, however, made Virginia's memoir different. First, the stories she needed to share were devastating beyond measure for her to tell. Second, several of the characters in these stories were among the wealthiest and most powerful in the world. Some of those people had already threatened Virginia to try to keep her quiet. From the beginning, Virginia and I understood that this would have to be a meticulously written book, to ensure accuracy, of course, but also to protect her from those who would have preferred she stayed silent. I want to say explicitly why Virginia opted not to stay silent, which certainly would have been easier for her. From the beginning, she told me she believed that her story would help other people, not just survivors of Epstein's cruelty, but any person, male or female, who'd ever been coerced into sex against his or her will. Over and over, during the hundreds of conversations and text and email exchanges Virginia and I had over 4 years, she insisted that she wanted to be portrayed authentically, with all her flaws. She wanted the world to know who she really was so that survivors of abuse who might read her words would feel less alone. She hoped that if she painted a real portrait of her suffering, it would inspire more people to fight to make the changes she believed were so desperately needed. Prime among them, legislation to eliminate statute of limitations provisions for sexual abusers of children. Virginia was one of the most sweethearted and generous people I've ever met. She was devoted to her 3 children, whom she shared with her husband, Robbie Guiffre, from whom she was later estranged. She was also fierce and determined, and that fierceness is what enabled me, at her direction, to tell her whole story, and just as importantly, to interrogate it, to confirm it, and ultimately to help create the inspiring but also heartbreaking account you are holding in your hands.
All of the source material for today's video is coming from Feminagra. As you guys know, I trust them. I appreciate their reporting style, and I really appreciate that they get straight to the facts. They do not sponsor any of my videos. I am not an ambassador for them in any way or a patron or anything. I just really appreciate their style of reporting. And as you guys have seen, the media is complicit in so much misinformation, and they are intentionally doing so. And so when I find a publication or a platform that I trust, I absolutely rely on them and I like to promote them. So that is the only connection I have to Feminagra, is that I am a loyal reader. Today's article is God Save Virginia Giuffre. Nobody's Girl forces Britain to face the truth about royal privilege. Virginia Giuffre's memoir, Nobody's Girl, delivers a detailed account of her alleged encounters with Prince Andrew, positioning him within Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's trafficking circle. The book traces her story from the early 2000s to the legal and public fallout that ultimately led to the removal of his HRH style and military titles, though he remains the Duke of York. Now, that was a bit foggy for me when we first talked about that. The way the wording sounded, it implied that he was losing his Duke of York title, and that is not the case. He is choosing not to use it, which again is a form of privilege. The first meeting in London. Giuffre recalls being told by Ghislaine Maxwell that she would meet a handsome prince. Maxwell took her shopping that morning before introducing her to Prince Andrew at her London townhouse. Giuffre describes the Duke as flirtatious and confident. He joked about her age while Maxwell teased that she was Cinderella. That evening, Giuffre says she posed for the now infamous photograph alongside Maxwell and Andrew. She later stated that Epstein took the image with her disposable camera, developing it days later after she returned to Florida. Weeks later, Giuffre claims she saw Prince Andrew again at Epstein's New York townhouse, where Maxwell presented a puppet resembling the Duke and suggested they pose with it. She recounts feeling uneasy but aware of the influence Epstein and Maxwell held over her life. Her third meeting allegedly took place on Epstein's private island in the Caribbean, where she says Andrew was part of a sexual encounter involving several young girls. Giuffre writes that Epstein paid her $15,000 afterwards. From silence to public exposure. In the years that followed, Giuffre's life drifted away from Epstein's world. She eventually rebuilt her life, but remained haunted by what she described as exploitation disguised as privilege. When the Daily Mail approached her in 2011 to confirm rumors of a royal connection, she found the photograph that changed everything. The resulting article, Prince Andrew and the Pedo, launched a media firestorm. Giuffre says she received about $160,000 from a media intermediary for photo and story rights, but later regretted the sale. She turned over the remaining photographs to the FBI. Guiffre accuses journalists and editors of manipulating her words to serve sensational headlines. She also writes that she believed Andrew's team sought to discredit her online through coordinated trolling. And we do know that that is a tactic the royal family is known to deploy. Camilla Tominay's framing of Virginia Giuffre's claims shows how media power shields the powerful. Absolutely. She recounts how a 2015 ABC News interview about her time with Epstein and Prince Andrew was canceled before broadcast. Footage later leaked in 2019 showing anchor Amy Robach saying the network had been pressured after contacting Buckingham Palace. She viewed this as part of a pattern of suppression that shielded powerful men from scrutiny. Absolutely. The return of a royal scandal. By 2019, Giuffre's claims resurfaced in newly unsealed court documents revealing that she had named Prince Andrew under oath years earlier. She stated publicly that he knew exactly what he'd done. Her lawyer, David Boyce, said Andrew's repeated denials were implausible, pointing out that anyone who spent time in Epstein's homes could not claim ignorance of what was happening. That same year, Prince Andrew's BBC Newsnight interview triggered a global outrage. His remarks about taking his daughter for pizza and his claim of being unable to sweat became defining moments of reputational collapse. Giuffre writes that the interview was like jet fuel for her case, energizing her legal team and changing public perception. Filing the lawsuit. In 2021, Giuffre filed a civil suit against Prince Andrew under New York's Extended Child Victims Act. The claim accused him of rape and battery when she was a minor. Andrew's lawyers initially resisted being served, prompting a judge to criticize what he called a game of hide-and-seek behind palace walls. The case gained further weight when witness Shukri Walker confirmed seeing Giuffre and the Duke together at London's Tramp nightclub in 2001. Even as the Ghislaine Maxwell trial unfolded, Giuffre says Andrew's representatives worked to discredit her, feeding media stories that branded her as unreliable. Despite this, although she did not testify at Maxwell's trial, her previous statements and depositions helped shape the broader case against Maxwell's trafficking network. The court's decision and the settlement. In January of 2022, Judge Lewis Kaplan ruled that Giuffre's lawsuit could proceed, rejecting Andrew's argument that a prior settlement with Epstein protected him. The decision took Buckingham Palace. Days later, the Queen removed her son's royal and military titles. The case concluded a month later with a confidential settlement. The joint statement acknowledged Giuffre's suffering and expressed Andrew's regret over his association with Epstein. He agreed to make a substantial donation to her Victims' Rights Foundation, SOAR, that stands for Speak Out, Act, and Reclaim. Giuffre later revealed that she saw the statement as a form of validation, even without a confession of wrongdoing. Aftermath and enduring fallout. Giuffre writes that the months following the settlement were filled with exhaustion and renewed purpose. She channeled the funds into expanding SOAR to support survivors and raise awareness of trafficking. In her words, restitution could be a form of justice. The memoir revisits later developments, including Maxwell's 2024 prison claim that the photo of Giuffre and Andrew was fake. The photographer, Michael Thomas, publicly confirmed that the image was genuine. In 2024, British tabloids reported that Andrew had sought legal advice about possibly overturning or retracting the settlement. Her attorney, David Boyce, replied that he would welcome the opportunity to take Andrew's deposition. Life after the case. By 2023, Andrew's royal exile appeared permanent. At King Charles III's coronation, he sat without formal role or titles, while protesters held signs in Trafalgar Square, I'm sorry, I did not say that correctly, reading God Save Virginia Giuffre. Giuffre viewed that moment as symbolic, a public acknowledgement of how far her fight had reached. Aww. The book closes with the original photograph taken in Maxwell's London townhouse in March of 2001. Giuffre confirms once again that Epstein snapped it himself. The image remains one of the most scrutinized photographs in modern royal history. Final thoughts. Nobody's Girl captures 2 decades of scandal, silence, and the pursuit of accountability. Through Virginia Giuffre's testimony, the memoir forces a reckoning with power, privilege, and exploitation. The legal record may have closed, but its shadow stretches across the monarchy and over the man at its center. What this moment exposes is an existential crisis for the monarchy. Prince Andrew may have surrendered his royal titles, but the questions have only multiplied. According to recent reporting from BBC News and The Guardian, the Metropolitan Police are reviewing allegations that Prince Andrew sought personal information about Guiffre from law enforcement contacts. My goodness. The British media continues to frame Andrew's downfall through the prism of reputation rather than harm. His 2019 BBC interview remains discussed as a car crash for his image instead of a reflection of the abuse Guiffre describes. Even now, coverage centers on Andrew's humiliation, not the young woman who was trafficked at 17. That photograph, the 41-year-old prince beside a teenage girl dressed to appear older, has become a symbol of Britain's moral paralysis. Epstein is dead, allegedly. Maxwell is in prison, and Guiffre, who died earlier this year, left behind her final testimony. Yet the man at the center of their world remains free, his accountability still voluntary. I think that is the most important aspect of that sentence. It was voluntary. I think we continue to have to face the fact that there is no bottom floor for the royal family. We should be able to expect the royal family or any other institution such as that to hold their members accountable, especially for something so egregious. But then when you look at their history, Charles himself has been connected to and quite close with a number of alleged pedophiles, and some proven to be pedophiles. Let me take off the alleged. Some of his closest friends, confidants, and people he was publicly associated with and who were also very present within the royal family were pedophiles and abusers, some of which were convicted. And we talked about that over on a Patreon video a couple of years ago, just how many pedophiles have been linked to the royal family. And so for them, from my view, this just seems like par for the course. But again, they are no match for the impact of global information being shared instantly in the way that social media and the internet allows us to share it. For the longest, prior to the internet, the royal family has been able to truly shape the narrative around them and how the public sees them through very carefully crafted pictures and stories and connections and relationships with the media, etc. But with the presence of the internet, with the presence of social media, with the presence of everyone's camera, everyone's microphone, everyone's ability to connect with each other instantly, they have failed to keep up. And as time has progressed, we have seen so many skeletons fall out of their closet. And without the internet or social media, I feel like they would have otherwise stayed hidden. And even a situation like this, the royal family tried so hard to manage their image after that interview Prince Andrew did, where he made all those insane claims. And we dissected that interview from second one to it went completely off. Like, we dissected that interview up, down, sideways, and through. It was a shit show. And of course it was a shit show because he was lying. And I wish, even though the interviewer did a great job of giving him a lot of pressure, I wish that the conversation that followed had been focused on the abuse claims and not the shit show that happened. While it did a number on his credibility, it still dominated the conversation from the aspect of him just being a screw up rather than him being an abuser. And that should have been the focal point. I mean, anyone who would use their children as a scapegoat to get out of being held accountable is a monster, an absolute disgusting monster. To do the things that he allegedly did makes him a monster. The case against Andrew, especially as far as the public is concerned, is cut and dry. Yet he is able to voluntarily renounce his title. Like, do you see how crazy that sounds? Anyway, let's continue. The imbalance is as sickening as it is revealing. The scandal has peeled back the curtain on the monarchy's protective machinery. Royal titles remain shielded from parliamentary challenge. Security costs rise while the public still bears them. Settlements are paid through private estates untouched by tax law. A structure meant to embody national virtue now appears designed to conceal it. A public inquiry should be open to investigate how royal privilege and state institutions were used to shield one of their own. The royal family must apologize for the harm caused by that protection and the decades of silence that followed. The Andrew scandal is not merely a family disgrace. It is a test of Britain's willingness to hold its most powerful to account. and of whether the monarchy still has the moral credibility to survive? That's a great question. No, they don't. Once again, that was an excellent summary by Miss Historian of Feminagra. This article is linked in the description box below if you'd like to read this again, or if you would like to check out more from Feminagra or Miss Historian. But I have to say, I am already into the book and I am looking forward to finishing it this week and beginning our recap next week. One of the things that I have just been trying to process as I even began this, but when I first pre-purchased the book, when I got it during the pre-sale, I was essentially taking deep breaths even then and just kind of counting down the days until it released, trying to mentally and emotionally prepare myself for what I was going to read. But I understand that some of these details may be difficult, but I do want to reiterate how important it is that we actually read them, that we actually face them, that we actually acknowledge the very, very, very difficult time that all of these survivors experienced, but also the very real facts and truths and details and stories as they actually are. It's imperative that we take in the world around us as it is. It's not always going to be comfortable. And as a matter of fact, the value in it is that it is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable enough so that we face it and we acknowledge that it is very real. Oppression and trafficking of all forms is very real, and something has to be done. And it's happening right under people's noses. These people weren't, and when I say these people, the people detailed in the whole Epstein situation and in others, they weren't chained to walls. They weren't chained in a basement somewhere. They weren't cattle prodded and things like that. Like the images that we have of trafficking and slavery are of chattel slavery. And we don't actually have enough media or content or conversations around what modern day trafficking and slavery actually is. One of the things that I truly valued about the Floodlight podcast, that's by Princess Eugenie and her partner, they have the Anti-Slavery Collective, and they also have the Floodlight podcast, is that they explore all forms of trafficking and slavery and human exploitation on that podcast. And we've recapped all of the episodes. You can find them in my Royal Review playlist. But the craziest aspect of that is that the anti-slavery movement and the anti-human exploitation movement that was taken on by Princess Eugenie is interesting because she's the daughter of Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew is the person accused in this autobiography. Prince Andrew is at the center of this, her dad. And I have for a very long time wondered on a number of levels what led her down that path, outside of it just being an important topic and an important situation to really bring awareness to. But there are a lot of topics and situations and forms of oppression and things like that that she could have made the highlight of her platform. I have for a long time wondered what led Princess Eugenie down that path. And I have heard so many different theories and so many conversations have been started about why did Andrew's daughter want to lead her platform of activism with human trafficking and exploitation of humans, particularly sex trafficking. That was covered heavily on her podcast and with the Anti-Slavery Collective, which is linked in the description box below as well if you want to check out their website. And I'm just curious. I think it's important work, and I'm really glad that she is someone who is taking on the task of really trying to do the work to upend it. But I would be remiss if I wasn't honest and didn't say that it did raise some eyebrows, because she still has a public relationship with her dad. Like, she didn't denounce her dad. She's when they have events, he's still invited and she's still photographed with him. She still walks into church with him, and it's not a thing to her, at least that we can tell. Like, again, I don't know what's in that woman's head, and I don't know if that is a personal battle every single time she sees that man. I don't know. And it very well could be. This could be something that brings her a lot of stress. And I'm not wishing that on her, but I am curious as to what led her down the path of advocacy for trafficking when her father is one of the most famous faces of modern day human trafficking out there. And he was closely associated with one of the most famous human traffickers out there, especially in modern day. I know that we'll never get it, but I would absolutely love some firsthand insight from her as to what led her down that path. It could be a moral dilemma of, I know my dad is accused of this, whether I believe it or not, I do want to do something to help the victims who have experienced this. It could be that, or it could be, this is an important topic and I don't care who it's associated with. This is something I feel passionate about. But that was something that that I was curious about. But I will say, if you want more information on what human trafficking looks like in the modern age, check out the Floodlight podcast. Check out Anti-Slavery International. That's one of the groups that I am actually a member of. And that is what they do. They highlight modern day forms of slavery and they advocate against it. They accept donations to help free people. They put money and resources behind freeing people, exposure. They do a lot of incredible advocacy work. The Anti-Slavery International and Anti-Slavery Collective. If you want more information, I highly recommend checking out those websites or the Floodlight podcast. But like I was saying, back to my original point, these people, these women, they weren't being held in chains. It was right under everyone's nose. These women look in this photo exactly. She looks healthy. She looks happy. And when I say look, I mean emphasis on looks. She looks happy. If someone were to walk past these three people on the street, their mind wouldn't automatically go to something is going wrong here. As a matter of fact, if I walk past these three people posed exactly like this, I would probably say that's a parent and their daughter. But because of how young she absolutely looks. And even though she was quote unquote dressed by Ghislaine Maxwell to look older, she looks like she's 17 years old. There is in no way, shape, or form any appearance that I have seen of her at that age that looked like she was not a minor. She looks like a minor. And either way, he looks damn old to be having his hand around her waist. Now, that's the only thing that sincerely jumps out to me is his hand placement. Outside of that, if I just saw these three human beings with these same expressions on their face, I wouldn't immediately know anything was wrong. And so that is how it works. The veil is there, but it is extremely thin. And it's very hard to detect because they go through a lot of steps to make sure these people are mentally entrapped, that they are mentally bound. And so it's not immediately apparent to everyone on the outside, but they are afraid to get out of the network. They are threatened. They are incentivized to stay within the network. They are brainwashed. They are manipulated. They are taken advantage of. And having Virginia Guiffre, someone who experienced this firsthand and was able to move on with her life, a very unfortunately short life, she shares these details from her perspective. And I think even though these things will make us uncomfortable, I think that's part of the value in it, is that we will be uncomfortable enough to be willing to see the world as it is. And maybe moving forward, we will be able to detect things like this at first glance. And I won't say give credit, but we won't assume the best, or we won't offer them the benefit of the doubt, is what I'm trying to say. We won't offer them the benefit of the doubt and say, oh, that just looks like three people who know each other, or possibly a parent and child. We'll take a second glance and say, what is going on over there? What is happening over there? And that's the value in hearing these firsthand accounts. I really, really wish true justice had been served. And unfortunately, it wasn't. And just like the article stated, he is somewhere living fine. Even the whole Prince Andrew was exiled, but still living in a multi-million-dollar property that he himself doesn't really have to pay for. And his meals are being cooked. He has a maid service. Like, he is still in an extreme privilege. He is still a pampered, spoiled, pompous brat who was able to commit heinous crimes. And the worst is that he won't be able to, or he's choosing not to use his official royal titles that don't mean a damn thing in the modern world. Nobody cares if you're royal anymore. What the hell? You're not an elected official. You have no expertise. You have no insight. You don't have any experience, no education that matters. You're just a walking mannequin, a walking mascot, and a puppet. So sure, you don't get to call yourself, or you don't want to call yourself, royal puppet today, but we don't give a damn. True justice should have been served, whether you are a royal or an official, a public official, or anything else. As a matter of fact, I actually think people in positions of privilege, or positions such as the royal family or in public office, should be the ones who get the worst sentences. They should be the ones that have justice rendered the worst, because you are in a position of a quote unquote authority. You have a lot of visibility. People put a little bit more of, what's the word? People expect you to have a higher moral standard because you are an example to some people. You represent a group of people. You should be held to a much higher moral standard. And so when these things happen to people who have this much visibility and have these huge platforms, or have access to this many people, or have a platform this huge, they should absolutely be made an example of. Because if he can get away with it, he's just sending a message to everyone else who looks up to him or is like him or has similar levels of privilege that you can get away with it too. You just might not get to use your job titles, but you'll be fine. Justice should have absolutely been served. He can't be miserable enough living on a royal estate for me to feel like justice is served. Not to mention, sure, he's not a working royal. So basically, what they're saying is not only are we still going to keep taking care of him, but his punishment is that he doesn't have to act like he's even earning it anymore. He gets to just live off of taxpayer dollars for free, for funsies, and he doesn't even have to pretend he's working anymore. That to me is not a punishment, but that's me. Anyway, true exile would come with some justice. What do you guys think of this? We're going to get more into his quote unquote punishments in the next article, also from Feminegra. I have even more thoughts now that more details have come out. But while we're moving over to that topic, y'all let me know what you think in the description box, or excuse me, in the comment section below.
It's my time to go. It's my time to go. But I want the book published. I begged her one more time to let her doctors do their jobs. I want you around for the rest of my life, I said. She told me she loved me. I told her I loved her too. The next day, on April 1st, Virginia sent me and Deanie von Muffling, her longtime publicist, an email stating clearly her desire to publish the book. It read, in part, I am reaching out to discuss an important matter regarding my book, Nobody's Girl. It is my heartfelt wish that this work be published, regardless of my circumstances at the time. The content of this book is crucial, as it aims to shed light on the systemic failures that allow the trafficking of vulnerable individuals across borders. It is imperative that the truth is understood and that the issues surrounding this topic are addressed, both for the sake of justice and awareness. In the event of my passing, I would like to ensure that Nobody's Girl is still released. I believe it has the potential to impact many lives and foster necessary discussions about these grave injustices. I kindly ask for your assistance in making this wish a reality. Thank you for your support. Patience.
And this brings us to our next article that talks about the level of privilege Prince Andrew has been able to wield in this entire situation. Again, this is also from Feminegra, and it's titled King Charles and Prince William Applaud Themselves as Prince Andrew Keeps His Privilege. What a wonderful, wonderful title. In her posthumous memoir, Nobody's Girl, Virginia Giuffre recalls 3 encounters with Prince Andrew that she says took place when she was 17. The most disturbing claim is that Andrew behaved as if sex with her was his birthright. Her account, written before her death in April of 2025, revives a scandal that has long haunted the monarchy. Andrew denies all allegations and insists he has no memory of meeting Giuffre. Yet her description of entitlement has reopened a debate about power, privilege, and protection at the heart of the royal family. The allegations that never faded. Giuffre's memoir outlines 3 encounters in 2001 arranged by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. The meetings took place in London, New York, and on Epstein's Island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. She says Andrew knew her age and joked about trading her in soon, describing his tone as dismissive and transactional. She wrote that Maxwell later praised her, saying, "You did well, the prince had fun." The image of the young woman beside Andrew and Maxwell in a London townhouse has become emblematic of the case. Giuffre's claims are supported by witness statements and flight logs that place Andrew within Epstein's circle. He has admitted staying at Epstein's homes and flying on his jet, but denies any sexual contact. The 2022 civil settlement, estimated at £12 million, resolved the lawsuit without admission of guilt but deepened public doubt and scrutiny. Newly revealed emails from 2011, including one where Andrew wrote to Epstein, quote, "Seems we're in this together," further weakened his defense and contradicted his televised claim that their friendship had ended years earlier. A royal entitlement protected by power. The allegations against Andrew expose more than individual misconduct. They reveal how royal privilege continues to shield members of the monarchy from lasting consequence. Despite stepping back from public life, Andrew remains a fixture within the Windsor estate, living on royal grounds and retaining security protection. I want to repeat that again. He has retained his security protection. The palace's response has followed a familiar pattern. A public declaration of the removal of his titles, when in reality, he still retains them. And most glaringly, there is no accountability. Andrew remains technically a Duke, Knight of the Garter, and an HRH. Palace aides describe his titles as in abeyance, inactive but intact, a phrase that captures the illusion of reform. He continues to live at Royal Lodge under a private lease that extends until 2078, meaning even the king cannot evict him. The gesture of renouncing titles changes nothing about the comfort of his position. 6 years of spin and no consequence for Prince Andrew. 3 official statements have been issued since his association with Jeffrey Epstein first drew scrutiny. Each one strikes a tone of regret and self-preservation rather than true consequence. In 2019, he stepped back for the foreseeable future. In 2022, his titles and patronages were returned to the late Queen. Now, in 2025, he announces he will, quote, no longer use them, not that they were removed. These are the palace's own words. It is important to note that removing Andrew's dukedom would require an act of parliament. That step is unlikely, as it would set a precedent that threatens the very structure of the monarchy itself. Despite the palace statements, the official royal website still lists him as the Duke of York and identifies him among the current counselors of state, proof that little has truly changed. A family and a system without reflection. The question has moved beyond Andrew's guilt to the institution that allowed his entitlement to endure. His story reflects not a lone moral lapse, but a system designed to protect privilege over principle. Every palace statement reads like a strategy of containment rather than contrition. Andrew's announcement that he would, quote, cease using his royal titles is a hollow gesture preserving wealth, security, and Epstein-linked privileges. The decision, made after discussions with King Charles and renewed scrutiny of Epstein's files, mirrors his 2022 settlement, an act of image management, not accountability. Quote, the next monarch will be more ruthless. Buckingham Palace says the Prince of Wales was consulted on the decision, but it is understood that he is not satisfied with the outcome and knows the Andrew problem will be in his tray at some point. When William is king, Andrew will be banned from all elements of royal life. He will be excluded from public and private royal events, including the coronation, and banned from most state occasions. That is from the Times. There is now a coordinated effort in the media to applaud not only the king, but also Prince William for the so-called action taken against Andrew. Royal biographer Andrew Lowney describes the move as a little bit of smoke and mirrors, noting that it was actually William and the government, not the king, who pushed for Andrew to lose his titles. Throughout it all, the king remained silent. Kate once described walking alongside Meghan and Harry at Windsor Castle after the Queen's death as, quote, the hardest thing she had ever done. I remember that. And I'm so happy that she got the global backlash that she deserved. Yet sharing a car ride with Prince Andrew seemed effortless. Sure did. The 2023 Balmoral outing was portrayed as a show of family unity. Now, the same family now applauding Andrew's decision to stop using his titles had no issue appearing publicly beside him, smiling for cameras, and sending the message that proximity to scandal is tolerable when the offender is royal. I also want to point out, these are people with children. The image of unity at Balmoral and the current palace praise tour both serve one purpose: to make the public believe action has been taken when, in truth, very little has changed. Andrew still lives on royal grounds, still enjoys taxpayer-funded security, and still benefits from the institution that shielded him. The remaining taxpayer-funded royals are patting themselves on the back as if they have delivered justice, but they're merely managing optics. If William cared about accountability, he would have spoken up long before it was politically safe. Instead, the Windsors continue their oldish tradition, protecting each other and calling it duty. No consequences are coming of this, and that should absolutely be a concern for everyone. This person is above the law. There's no other way around it, and that should not be the case because of his position within this family. Not even an elected official, no one holding public office, nothing. He doesn't serve people or the public in any way, shape, or form, not even the illusion of it any longer. This person is above the law. He was able to traffic someone, rape someone, harm people, and get away with it. And not only did he harm people in the UK, he harmed people here in America, and he is not being extradited and forced to serve jail time. That should be a concern for everybody. That is a problem. I don't feel any human being should be above the law. When you cause harm to someone, you should absolutely have to experience justice. And it is extremely unfair that he doesn't have to. Look at how detrimental it has been. Look at how he destroyed several lives. Oh, but because he can't use his pretend job, or he won't use his pretend job title, everything is okay. We're still going to take care of him. We're still going to give him security. We're going to protect the Knots. I mean, it's bad enough that you're not even serving justice. You're not going to let the public serve justice? Anyway, how pathetic. And then on top of all of that, the whole, well, he's shunned by his family. I can't tell. He's been walking into church with them. He made an announcement on behalf of the Queen. He has been living the high life. I can't see anything that's changed other than he no longer has to pretend to work. He's got it made. He still gets his teddy bears positioned the way he likes. He still gets to do whatever the hell he's doing at Royal Lodge. He still gets to live with his wife who's divorced from him. Neither of them have to work on behalf of the crown, but they still get to experience all of the privileges. You damn right that's sad. That's pathetic. And no, there isn't any reason to pat yourself on the back, Charles and William, especially you, Charles. I also like to say, when I reported, I'm not a reporter, but when I talked about this, when it was first announced, I read the statement as it was. And even I didn't exactly note that the choice was Andrew's. When I read the statement, I was like, oh, great, they're stripping him of his titles. And then I went back to edit and I was looking at the statement. I said, wait a minute. This is a choice for him to not use it. He's not being stripped. This was his decision. And that doesn't look good on him. That looks bad on the institution. That looks bad on Parliament. That looks bad on the UK. Hell, that looks bad on America. Because at the end of the day, you trafficked someone here. Something should be done. He should not be allowed to be protected. Goodness, I feel like I'm screaming at a wall. I'm screaming into the void of people looking back at me. And I'm not speaking of you people, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like I'm screaming at a wall and people are looking back at me like, but he's royal. Why would he face consequences? And I feel like every person who talks about Andrew, every person who acknowledges the harm he's done feels the same way. Like, am I crazy? Is this not insane to anyone else? I feel the same way about Andrew as I feel about Trump. Is no one else shocked by this? He's desensitized a lot of people to his buffoonery and ignorance and danger. Just because someone is a stupid buffoon does not mean they don't pose a danger and a threat. And I feel the same way about both of them. Like, how are people not more alarmed? It's because those voices are being suppressed. Those voices are being dismissed. Those voices are being railroaded through carefully coordinated media campaigns. Those voices who should be and would be using their platform to call this out, they're being suppressed. And then other people who are innocent are being used as deflections. How sad. How absolutely sad. The only thing I can say is if William makes good on his promise, then I guess we shall see. But in my opinion, it shouldn't be up to William because this happened years ago. He should be serving justice now. Hell, he should have been serving justice when all of this came out under Queen Elizabeth. It's very sad and pathetic. Anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And this kind of leads us into the last topic. So I love the tone of this article, because it kind of points out it absolutely points out the hypocrisy of all of this. So Charles and William are patting themselves on the back for pretending to reprimand Andrew. Meanwhile, William is dropping a dime to every media outlet that he knows, every media outlet that's in his pocket that, oh, when I become king, I'm going to get Andrew's ass. That's essentially the energy we're getting. But they're not doing enough now. Charles is not doing enough now. And hell, they didn't do anything, to be real. But guess what William is excited to do when he becomes king? Guess who he is excited to punish when he becomes king? You guessed it. His own niece and nephew. This is the last article I'm going to share from Feminagra. And I have discussed William as an heir, as a brother, as a brother-in-law, and as an uncle. And in the many times that I have discussed how absolutely abysmal his performance is in every single one of those roles, the one that hits me hardest is his position as an uncle. It doesn't mean that anything he's done as an uncle is any worse or better than what he's done as a brother and a brother-in-law. Absolutely not. He's done some atrocious things to his brother and sister-in-law. As an uncle, I feel like that is an extreme position of privilege to be in the village of a child. I feel like being an aunt or an uncle is one of the biggest blessings a person could experience. You don't have to do any of the work to bring the child here, but man, do you reap the benefits of getting to be in the child's life. You get to see them grow up. You get to offer them wisdom. You get to protect them. You get to love them. You get to play with them. You get to let them do things their parents don't let them do, like eat ice cream at 1 a.m. I love my niece and nephew so much. You get to do the fun stuff. You get to be the aunt. You get to be the uncle. As someone whose uncles were a huge part of my life. My uncle passed when I was 7 years old, and I met him when I was 3. And in that very short 4 years, he made such an impression that he is still a permanent fixture in my psyche to this day, in only 4 years. And I made a vow when he passed that one day if I become an aunt, I want to be at least half as great as he was as my uncle. So suffice it to say, I take that role very seriously. And when Archie was born, Prince Archie, excuse me, let me put some respect on that baby's name. Prince Archie, when he was born, and William and Kate both behaved so dismissively when asked about it. At one point, even Kate just outright refused to answer a question that was asked about Archie. And then she did the same thing when she was asked about Princess Lilibet Diana. And then when they were kind of cornered and they were at some kind of walkabout or whatever, I don't know, they were touching hands. And somebody asked, are you excited to become an uncle? And William knew what the hell that reporter was asking. This is your first time being an uncle to your brother's child. He said, I'm already an uncle because Pippa had children, which is Kate's sister. And while no, don't make differences between your nieces and nephews on either side. If you're married, they're all your nieces and nephews. As someone with 13 of them, you absolutely treat them all the same. That wasn't the question, and that wasn't the nature of the question. Yes, I have a niece and nephew, but if my husband's sibling has a child and someone says, how does it feel to become an aunt again? I'm not going to be like, I already had 2 of them before they got here. Like, that's such a shitty thing to say. And he knew exactly what that reporter meant. And he was sending a very clear message. I don't see this as a matter of importance. They also took days to go and visit with the baby. As someone who literally was breaking down the highway trying to get to my sister when my nephew was born because I didn't want to miss it. And I wanted to be one of the first faces he saw. I cannot imagine being just right up the way and being like, I'll get to it when I get to it. That's your family. Not only your family, but you're in their village. There's a different type of bond you have when you are one of the responsible parties for a little life. Should anything happen to my sisters or brothers, I am happy to step in for their children. God forbid, obviously, but I'm happy to fulfill the role while they're here. I'm happy to be another source of love, light, wisdom, resources, whatever they need from me. So to see someone with literally every single resource one can imagine, who was at one point, quote unquote, at least portraying being close with his brother while still bullying him behind the scenes. I would expect that even if you're not really fooling with your brother like that, your niece and nephew are not part of that. You should absolutely still fulfill the role of an uncle. Let me ask y'all, because I might just be putting a lot on it. I just feel like this is almost a personal grievance. I cannot stand to see someone who doesn't do right by children. And as a person who knows adults fall out, people fall in and out, we argue, we fight. If you have a sibling, you fought with them. But that should not impact the children. That should not impact your relationship with the children. I can't tell you how many times me and my sister have gone through little muted spells where we don't talk. Her kids still call me. I still call them. We still see each other. And that's because she knows that I would never in any way, shape, or form harm anyone, but especially not my babies. But William can't even be bothered to call his niece and nephew. He can't even be bothered to acknowledge them. And so you took the break from not acknowledging them to only take the time to acknowledge them so you can talk about doing some form of harm to them. You can't make this shit up. He is a villain. This family, not the ones in America, Harry, Meghan, and the Sussex babies, they are absolved from this. And to me, they are the true royals. They are the only ones I really think of as royal, because you're not just royal with a crown, you're royal from the inside out. Diana, Harry, Meghan, them babies, Queen Doria, those are the royals to me. But that's neither here nor there. The rest of that family, they operate like classic Disney villains. This is Scar. This is Scar. Prove me wrong. Every day he looks for ways to be a shittier human being and an even worse uncle. Anyway, let's get into the promises William has made this time. And I'm going to skip on down and see Feminagra. I linked this in the description box below if you want to go through all this, but I do feel like I've occupied a lot of y'all's time. So feel free to come back to this if you want to. But this is an acknowledgement of how William has distanced himself from Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet Diana, and he doesn't acknowledge them publicly. But we're going to start at this point in the article so that we can kind of get to the point. The title of this paragraph is Meghan's claims about title changes now appear substantiated. They were substantiated then, but I get what they're saying. In their 2021 interview with Oprah Winfrey, the Sussexes described troubling conversations that took place during Meghan's pregnancy. She revealed that palace figures had discussed altering the established convention that would entitle her children to inherit royal titles. The claim drew immediate scrutiny. Critics questioned her grasp of protocol. Pause. Critics question an actual royal's grasp of protocols. You can start there. Do you see how they work to dismiss a black woman? She is literally in the royal family, and people are still claiming she doesn't know what she's talking about. You just cannot make this shit up. I cannot even imagine. I don't think we even know an eighth of the shit Meghan had to deal with. God, that just makes seeing her as happy as she is now, it just makes it seeing her that way so much better, so much sweeter. The claim drew immediate scrutiny. Critics questioned her grasp of protocol and dismissed the allegation as misinformed. Jesus. At the time, Meghan also referred to comments made about her unborn child's potential skin tone. Speculation initially focused on Princess Kate, a detail later clarified and retracted in Obed Scobie's book Endgame, where he confirmed that 2 senior royals had been named in private correspondence. The exchange underscored how early efforts to distance the Sussex children from royal status were entangled with questions of lineage and image. This pattern now appears to continue under William's influence. Quote, "There's a convention that when you're the grandchild of the monarch, so when Harry's dad becomes king, automatically Archie and our next baby would become prince or princess or whatever they're going to be. And that having the title gives you the safety and protection, but also it's not their right to take it away. Even with that convention I'm talking about, while I was pregnant, they said they want to change the convention for Archie." And that was Meghan's statement to CBS in a CBS interview to Oprah Winfrey. William expected to rewrite title rules with political consequences. Today, those remarks seem harder to dismiss. Now, the latest reporting suggests that Prince William is considering changes to the royal naming system once he ascends to the throne. Sources close to the future king indicate a desire to remove princely status from the children of Prince Harry and possibly from the daughters of Prince Andrew as well. Under current rules, Archie and Lilibet are entitled to be styled as prince and princess, a status confirmed by King Charles shortly after his accession. Any future amendment would require new letters patent and careful legal framing. Now, this is from Tom Sykes for the Royalist Substack. It says, quote, "The dramatic change will be effected by an executive royal order known as Letters Patent, ratified by Parliament in the early weeks of the reign of King William V. It will remove princely titles not just for Andrew, but also for Beatrice and Eugenie, Harry, Archie, and Lilibet Diana. The children of Prince Edward and Princess Anne have never used princely titles. Meghan and Harry will also see their dukedoms and HRHs formally revoked by the new king," the source said. Meghan continues to use her HRH despite being ordered not to do so by the late Queen Elizabeth II. Now, wait a minute. I thought that only applied to her official engagements. Let me know. Despite what Sykes claims, royal titles confirmed by letters patent cannot be retroactively revoked without a constitutional overhaul. Prince Harry's titles are permanent by birth and lawful grant. Meghan's HRH was never removed. She only agreed not to use them. That is true. Archie and Lilibet Diana's princely titles follow established precedent under the 1917 George V letters patent. Any effort of Prince William to revoke them would face legal, political, and public legitimacy challenges. Title reform carries political consequences. The power to alter royal styles lies solely with the monarch. While the king may consult his heirs, the decision remains his alone. In recent years, Charles has refrained from pursuing formal reductions in royal status beyond what has already been negotiated. Even Prince Andrew, though removed from public life, retains his HRH and ducal titles. If William does intend to revisit the letters patent, he would face considerable backlash. I don't think he cares about that, to be real, both legally and politically. Adjusting the framework to remove Archie and Lilibet Diana would not only reopen painful public debates, but it would also highlight the monarchy's difficulty embracing diversity within its own ranks. They just gonna pull somebody else out with some kente. These actions would almost certainly impact perceptions of the monarchy abroad, especially in Commonwealth nations with majority Black and brown populations. Supporters of the Prince of Wales argue that he is preparing for a more streamlined royal future. Others believe his motivation lies closer to home, a personal effort to erase a branch of the family that he believes weakened the institution. And here's the thing, as we're talking about him not wanting to start these debates or not wanting to get the backlash, you have to remember that we're dealing with someone who is ego-based. He's motivated by his ego, but he's also a bully. Bullies often don't think beyond their own personal feelings. They often don't consider anybody else. So he would probably perceive public outcry as their own ignorance rather than justifiable critique and criticism. He wouldn't really see himself as the problem. He would just assume, well, I know best. They'll figure it out later. And I'm king, so it really doesn't matter. You can complain, but nothing's going to change. That's how bullies operate, and that's why having a bully as your king is so damn dangerous. Let's continue. Prince William wants to modernize the monarchy. What remains unclear is whether his vision includes all branches of his family. I also want to pause there. That whole modernize the monarchy, how does that work without diversity? What exactly are you modernizing? You're not modernizing your clothes. You're not modernizing your traditions or your rules. You're not modernizing the way you operate, and you're damn sure not modernizing the diversity within your family. So what exactly is getting modern other than we can adjust the rules to things that I prefer, and that's more modern because I changed my mind about things? That's not modernizing. That's doing what kings have been doing since the beginning of time, whatever the hell they feel like doing. His refusal to acknowledge Archie and Lilibet has gone beyond silence. It has begun to resemble a vindictive strategy. If the goal is to narrow the monarchy's public face, the question becomes which children are deemed worth protecting. The answer increasingly appears to depend not on duty, but on lineage. History may not repeat itself exactly, but it tends to follow familiar patterns. And the decisions William makes now will define the monarchy for a generation to come. Thank you so much for watching the SharionSade YouTube channel. I appreciate you watching my content. If you haven't already, please don't forget to go ahead and like this video by hitting the thumbs up. Please don't forget to subscribe by hitting the subscribe button. And don't forget to comment along the way. If you feel so inclined, please don't forget to share so that more people can find us. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Now let's get back to the video. One thing I can rest assured in is that even if William goes to hell and high water, emphasis on going to hell, William. Even if William goes to hell and high water and manages to remove titles from anyone in his family, no matter what, I can assure you and myself that it is not going to impact Harry and Meghan or their children one bit. Now, do I know if they'll care or not? I don't know. But what I do know is it won't impact them. It's the equivalent of someone saying to you, you can't play with me. You can't come in my backyard and swim in my pool. You can't play with my ball. And you didn't know they existed. Like, okay, slugger, whatever makes you feel good, baldy. But the truth of the matter is Harry and Meghan, as well as their children, have a destiny that is not only so clearly defined that they continue to live out that destiny every single day in their daily lives. But it's so much bigger than anything the royal family could not only concoct, but could even be part of, that they don't care about titles because those things don't define them. They have shit shit to do that actually matters. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to cut William some slack. He doesn't even know what that would be like. Nothing he does is important. Nothing he'll ever do is important. And nothing he does stands for anything real. So for myself, I've been really hard on him. I'm going to cut him some slack. He doesn't know what it looks like to matter. Not in a world like today. He doesn't know what it looks like to care about anyone outside of himself. He doesn't know what it looks like to actually give a damn about your family. He doesn't know what it actually looks like to create a real legacy that will not only outlive you, but that matters. And it's such a shame because of all the people to miss that mark, it would be one of Diana's sons, one of the people who, in my opinion, have left one of the most beautifully curated legacies of all time. One that her son, Harry, is gleefully walking the path of, expanding and leaving for his children as well. Harry and Meghan, as well as their children. But Harry and Meghan have a legacy, have a platform, have a purpose that exceeds far beyond any title. As a matter of fact, one might even say the titles are extremely restrictive. Because at the end of the day, Harry and Meghan are the draw, not who they're associated with, not who's associated with them, not who they're related to in an extended manner. We all have embarrassing family. Let me just say this. I'm probably somebody's embarrassing family. They might be like, can y'all believe I'm related to that crazy lady? But we all have embarrassing family. And so on that is one of the things that I send so much compassion and love to Harry and Meghan, having to be publicly related to those absolute buffoons. But they make it look good. And William doesn't know what it looks like to do anything worthwhile. William doesn't know what it looks like to be a leader. William couldn't tell you the first thing about living in today's world, surviving, scratching and surviving good times. He can't tell you which way is up, the cost of bread, or how much it costs to actually purchase a home with your own money. He wouldn't know. William can't walk into a store and swipe his card and know that they're charging him a fair wage or a fair rate because he doesn't buy his own things. He's a pampered, pompous, spoiled brat, not too many notches above Andrew. They're all in the same field together of rancid, disgusting, despicable people who were born into privilege that they not only don't deserve, but that they do a horrible time using to make the world better, because they don't at all. Not only do they not make the world better, but they don't even bring awareness to things, people, or organizations that could make the world better. So no, I don't expect him or anybody else left on that island to understand Harry and Meghan, nor do I expect them to understand just how little those damn titles matter to them. Now, one thing I will say is that's their name. but listen, I'm going to cut him some slack. He's an idiot. And so should he decide to proceed with whatever this plan is, that's probably the one big thing he's going to get to do in his entire life. And that will probably be enough to satiate him. He will probably do that and feel like he accomplished something in this world. He will probably do that and say, yeah, that'll get him. And no matter how much energy he puts behind it, no matter how much he enjoys it, no matter how much meaning he applies to that move or that gesture, they're not going to give a damn either way. You cannot impact someone who does not value you or the things you do. And quite frankly, William is not of value to anyone, let alone Harry and Meghan. My God, to think that they even take up any space in their brains is hilarious. William does not matter. Does he get to hold a very fun title for him? Sure. Does he get to be famous? Sure. Does he get to be in history books? Sure. But he's going to be in history books and we're going to look at his ass the same way we look at every other royal. Okay? And meanwhile, Harry and Meghan are actually a prime example of what it means to be relevant today in modern times. If you want the first clue as to what modern royalty looks like, Harry and Meghan are it. Actually doing something. And they don't need a title nor taxpayer funds to do it, because true leaders make a way. They lead by example. They do the shit that really matters, and it's not always fun. How many times have we seen Harry and Meghan volunteering and they had no idea a camera was nearby? Their hats low, gloves on, masks up, because they don't expect to get praised for the things that they do, because to them, the service is needed. The service is universal. The service is a necessity. They perform service, they extend service, they help service, they do all of the things to put people in positions to continue to contribute to underserved and under-resourced areas. Even those of us who might not feel like we have a lot to give, they give us examples. They expose us to organizations. They expose us to outlets that allow us to get engaged as well, wherever we stand on, and when it comes to finances or privilege or what have you. They not only do the work, but they make it possible for their audience and the world at large to get involved as well. They use their platform to highlight the important issues of the day. They use their interviews. They use their organization, their foundation. They use their speaking engagements. They use their work to make something, to do something, to impact something that truly matters. Do you genuinely think changing how they're referred to will impact that at all? I'd be surprised if they even noticed it happened. But whatever William needs, as the big man baby he is, to feel important and like he did a big boy job today, by all means, you kind of have to deal with people like William the same way you deal with like tantruming children. You know, it doesn't make sense to reason with them. They're not going to comprehend. You can make all the sense in the world. That 2-year-old is not going to understand what you're talking about. You have to just kind of put them in a corner and say, okay, get it all out. And when you're ready to come back out, come on back out. And you let them go off in that playpen. You let them throw them little plastic and plush toys around and scream and cry and say all the stuff. You know, I used to really think I was getting my mama's goose when I would say, I hate you. And she would say, that is such a shame because I love you so much. Now, I didn't even know what hate meant, but her response used to make me feel like utter shit. When she would say, oh, I just wish you didn't feel that way because I love you so much. And then here I go, oh, I'm sorry, mommy, I didn't mean it. She just, you know what? She's sneaky, that one. But the point is, when I was a child and I would tantrum or I would say, hey, I'm going to run away. You realize that, right? You're going to mess up with me that I'm going to hit the road. And she would say, that would be such a shame, but how will you survive? And do you know I didn't have any answers for her? Hadn't thought that far ahead. You have to deal with people like William the way my mom dealt with a tantruming me. Have fun, girl. Come back when you're ready to be reasonable. And the difference is I was 3, 4, 5, sometimes even 7. I wasn't 40 plus with a bald head, a wife and kids, still acting like a damn fool. But either way, imagine prioritizing hurting your niece and nephew. Imagine wanting to hurt your niece and nephew in general. But imagine prioritizing hurting your niece and nephew or your attempt at hurting them rather than getting out the nonces in your family, rather than finding something constructive to do for your people, especially when you don't promise them you're going to eradicate homelessness in 5 years and you 2 years into that 5-year promise. Imagine not having to pay for your own bread and milk and thinking that anything you do matters in this world. Well, William, we have no choice but to let you live in your delusion. Meanwhile, we're going to be over at Sussex.com and Archewell.org looking at shit that really matters. And whether or not the logos and monikers change, I don't think any of us will notice because the draw is Harry and Meghan and the importance is in their work and in their legacy. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Sorry for the tangent, but y'all know I can't stand him. But I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you haven't already, please don't forget to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share so that more people can find us. And I will see y'all next time. Bye.
What do you think your mother would have thought of Meghan or said about Meghan?
They'd be thick as thieves. Without question, I think she would be over the moon, jumping up and down, so excited for me. But then, as I said, would have probably been best friends with Meghan. So no, it's the fact that I fell in love with Meghan so incredibly quickly was a sort of confirmation to me that everything, all the stars were aligned. Everything was just perfect. It was this beautiful woman just sort of literally tripped and fell into my life. I fell into her life. I know the fact that she'll be really unbelievably good at the job part of it as well. We're a fantastic team. We know we are, and we hope to over time try and have as much impact for all the things that we care about as much as possible.
I am very excited about that. Causes that have been very important to me, I can focus even more energy on, because very early out of the gate, I think you realize once you have access or a voice that people are willing to listen to, with that comes a lot of responsibility, which I take seriously. But I don't see it as giving anything up. I just see it as a change.
It's a new challenge. It's
It's a new chapter. Now it's time to, as you said, work as a team with you. Yeah.
But do you have that sense of responsibility, Prince Harry, for what you're asking Meghan to do?
Of course, that sense of responsibility was essentially from day one, or maybe a couple of months in, when I suddenly realised, actually, I know that I'm in love with this girl, and I hope that she's in love with me. But we still had to sit down on the sofa, and I still had to have some pretty, frank conversations with her to say, look, what you're letting yourself in for it's a big deal. At the end of the day, she chooses me, and I choose her, and therefore, whatever we have to tackle together or individually will always be us together as a team. So, I think she's capable.
So nicely said, isn't it?
I don't know. She's capable of anything. And together, as I said, there's a hell of a lot of stuff and work that needs doing. At the moment, for us, it's going to be making sure that our relationship is always put first. But no, look, both of us have passions for wanting to make change for good. And with lots of young people running around the Commonwealth, that's where we're going to spend most of our time, hopefully.
And it was really one of the first things we connected on. It was one of the first things we started talking about when we met, was just the different things that we wanted to do in the world and how passionate we were about seeing change. I think that was that's what got date 2.
I think I speak for all of us when I say, thank God for that date too. Look at all the good that came from it. Bye, y'all.